Have you ever wanted to adjust a downloaded tune and were greeted with this message? Well, I'll be teaching you how to reverse engineer any downloaded tune. Let's get started right away. For upgrades, buy a new car and make sure the parts value is 0. Install and remove the downloaded tune of your choice. Now go to upgrades and choose every part that's marked as owned. After you do that, for every upgrade category, your car should have the exact same parts, PI, weight, and power of the original tune. Now let's get into tuning. For this part, you need to enable the telemetry in the in-game settings. There's also more advanced telemetry that you can get access to using the data out feature. I put the links on how to use this in the description. Here's what it looks like when you do it correctly. I recommend that you use 2 cars. One of these cars with only upgrades, we call it test car, and the other with the tune installed. This way we can match the settings much easier. I used an all-wheel drive car with every tuning setting being adjustable. We need a good place to run our tests. I recommend the abandoned airstrip because it's almost completely flat road. Then, for some tests, create a drag strip blueprint with fixed time and clear weather conditions. Now, let's get to unlocking. For some steps, you must do them in the same order as I do. Tire pressure and camber are dead giveaways. Just open telemetry and you see them both in the tires tab. Apply these settings to your test car. If the camber value is slightly off, like in this case, 0.02, that means the tune has tow in or out. Adjust it until it matches the original tune. For caster, turn your wheel all the way to the left or right and write down the front camber values. Now, change your caster until you match those numbers. Now, we move on to gears. I recommend metric units and using a manual transmission. Shift into the reverse in the tuned car and write down your maximum top speed. Now change your final drive until you match the same speed in your test car. It's the same process with every other gear, just top them out and match the top speed. However, in your final gear, you might notice that your top speed is different. That's because of aerodynamics. In Horizon 4, it was typical to see the front arrow maxed out, and that's the same in Horizon 5. Adjust your rear arrow until you match the top speed with your tuned car. Now, onto suspension. Get in your tuned car and fast travel to the drag strip. If you check your advanced telemetry, you will notice that it always puts you in the exact same position. However, ride height changes your position Y along with your yaw. Write these 2 numbers down. Then, get in your test car. In our case, you see both position Y and yaw are lower than the tuned car. The suspension needs to be both higher and angled more upwards. We changed our ride height to 14.5 and 14 as you could see. Both yaw and position Y are now the same as our tuned car. Now, time to unlock springs, and it's really simple. All you have to do is match front and rear standardized suspension travel value in your advanced telemetry. In our case, you can see by changing springs to 80 and 100, we almost exactly match our tuned car. Now, onto damping, which is a bit more tricky. You have to match the time it takes for your suspension to fully compress and decompress. For rebound, this danger sign is a good place. As it fully compresses your suspension and slows the game down, you can see more accurately when your suspension fully decompresses. In our case, you could see in the tuned car, front suspension fully decompresses right before the rear. In our test car, front decompression is almost identical. However, rear decompression is much faster, which means it should be stiffer. After adjusting it in the tuning menu, we now exactly match our tuned car. Now for bump stiffness, it's best for you to place props in the event lab and drive over them at speed. In our case, you could see the test car suspension doesn't compress as much, which means it should be softer. It's very similar to rebound, so I won't go over it much more. Now, onto differential. Center diff only exists in all-wheel drive cars. All you have to do is start up your drag blueprint and launch your car. And match either max RPM, tire slip ratio, or even how much your car torque steers. Do it in a higher gear if you get too much wheel spin. Here, in our case, we need more power to the rear. Now, onto anti-roll bars, which uses the same method as acceleration and deceleration values in differential. Put your car in a higher gear, turn your wheel all the way to the left or right, and start accelerating until you endlessly rotate in a circle. Now, take a look at your suspension telemetry. These values are mostly affected by your anti-roll bars. Try to match the difference between your left and right anti-roll bars on both front and rear. Move over to the tires tab and write down the speed difference between your left and right wheel. Matching them gives you the acceleration values. Now, let off the throttle and do the same thing to get the deceleration values. If you want more accurate results, do this a few times. For example, in our case, you can see the front anti-roll bar should be much softer than the stock settings, and our rear differential acceleration should be more locked up. It's just trial and error until you match the original tune. For brakes, first you will need to turn off ABS. And you have to keep in mind that this slider is inverse, meaning moving balance to the rear actually increases braking on the front. For brake balance, you have to drive your car at high speeds, then go all in on the brakes. Notice if the front wheels lock up first or the rear, and how long it takes for the other sets of wheels to lock up. In our case, you could see the front wheels lock up, quickly followed by the rear wheels. In the test car, it takes much longer for the rear wheels to lock up, which means we should move the slider to the front. For brake pressure, it's a very similar method. If your wheels lock up at a higher speed, it means the tune is using higher braking pressure and vice versa. In our case, the brakes are locking at a much lower speed, so we have to increase the pressure. And then you have it, we successfully unlocked every settings. Now you can adjust the tune to your liking. I tried to make this video as short as possible. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll try and answer them while the video is still recent. You can also find a spreadsheet with all of the settings on all of my tunes in the description. This is the end of the video and thank you for watching.